Good evening, friends. It is September the 10th, 11:53 p.m. God's laid something on my heart that that I was able to witness tonight. Um, that happened at a football game. Um, we Michelle and I went to our son's football game, and she had planned on seeing her cousin that she hadn't seen in many years. So they were talking, and we ended up sharing the 108 story uh, with him. And after sharing that story with him and everything that God has done to show not only Michelle and I, but anybody that hears this story or watches the video of how amazing and how timely God put all of that 108 story together on our wedding day. And the things that He's revealed to me and the things that He's revealed to Michelle at different times. The last part of it being about 4 weeks ago. So I ended up sharing that story with him, and before I had shared that with him, I asked him, "What's the most unique way that God has ever spoken to you?" And he immediately went into telling me that something that happened specific in his life, and not only one time, but he even said a second time. Well, before we actually met him, I saw a gentleman next to the fence. This is before the game started. I saw a gentleman next to the fence, and he had a Bible there with him. And I stopped and just chatted real briefly with him and asked him who he was. And he told me, and he said he was going to speak to the football team before the game. Well, after I had shared the 108 story with Michelle's cousin, I saw him standing next to the fence by himself. So I went up to him and I asked him, and let me say this, I come to find out he had been a pastor for several years and a member of this organization for several years, but a total of 19 years in the ministry. So I asked him the same question that I asked Michelle's cousin, which is, what's the most unique way that God has ever spoken to you? And he couldn't answer that question. So I ended up sharing the 108 story with him, and he's just amazed at how God put all of that together, and he's just baffled at how much detail that has gone into that. God took the time to put all of those details together for me and Michelle to be able to share this testimony with people like him and her cousin. And he had to go. So I went and sat in the football stands with Michelle and was telling her about uh, the what I had talked to him about and kind of how it had gone. And just as I was about to tell her that, I saw 476, which is First Chronicles 16:24. It says, "Tell everyone about the amazing things that I've done for you. Tell about the glorious deeds." And I looked at the game clock, and it had 11:33, which is Luke 11:33, and that's basically the same thing. It's just saying you don't put a lamp under a basket. You put it on a lampstand for it all to shine, which is saying the same thing. Go share whatever I need you to share is what God says to me. And I turned to Michelle and I said, I'm going to be speaking to somebody else tonight. I just don't know who it is. Well, we're sitting all the way on the very back row of the football stands, and I looked down and I could see a guy that had on the back of his shirt, I can't even remember the phrase right now, what it was, the most wonderful Disney love story, the love story of ours, or something along those lines. It's not really important, but that got my attention, and I went, God, is that who you want me to talk to? And I'm going, okay, how do I go up there and talk to him? Well, after debating with God for several minutes, I ended up going and sitting down next to this guy and asking him, what's the story behind the shirt? And he said that him and his wife had gotten that shirt. They both got a shirt on their 20th anniversary at Disney. And I was like, cool. I said, I want to share with you what happened on mine and my wife's wedding day. So I share the 108 story with him. But I asked him also the same question before I shared the 108 story with him. And he couldn't tell me, just like the other person couldn't tell me a specific thing or an event that they knew that it was God that put together. So, and that just baffles me. But this second person, or this person that had this on the back of their shirt, in talking with him, he's been in the ministry for 25 years. So there's another minister that can't tell me how God has spoken to them in a specific way that they know it wasn't anything but God. Neither one of these men as pastors could tell me this. And at the end of me sharing the 108 story with this second pastor, he asked me where I go to church. And I said, God took me out of church in October of 2019 and told me that you're not going to learn what I need you to learn in church. And he said, well, that's just not biblical. That's not right. How are you going to have any accountability? And I told him, I said, I am accountable to God every single day. Well, I just don't agree with that. It's just not biblical. And I said to him, how many times does God speak to you today? Or did God speak to you today about something going on? Well, I'm not going to answer that question. I'm not going to. And he walks off. And I get home and I look on my phone, and the number of times that I have captured or pictures that I have taken today, starting at about 7 o'clock this morning till just before I start making this video, there's 240 pictures that I have taken just today. Let's say 40 of those are not relevant, but 200 times just today that I have captured in pictures that I can share with anybody about my walk with God. Not that I'm special or anything, but I can show people with visual proof that God speaks to me so much. It's unbelievable. But what God has asked me to speak about tonight is something that's a very sensitive subject. Now, I shared this 108 story with 3 different people tonight. 2 of them being pastors. One of them, the third one, was not a pastor. Out of those 3 people, the only one that could give me a specific thing, and I'm talking, it was almost immediate. When I asked the question, it was almost immediate. He went into telling me what that specific thing was. He wasn't the pastor. The other 2 gentlemen that were pastors that I've never seen before in my life couldn't tell me a specific thing in 19 years or 25 years that something that God has done so specific that they knew it wasn't anything but God. And I sat here tonight baffled by how these men stand in front of people and preach the Word of God, and they can't tell you a specific thing that God has done in their life, and they know it wasn't anything but God. How does that happen? Let me explain how it happens. Okay? So here it is. I'm going to read something, and this is going to explain it, I believe. Something that Michelle just read to me just a few minutes ago. And it says, wolves in the desert. Habakkuk 1:8. While preparing for, While preparing the present volume, this particular expression reoccurred to me frequently, that in order to be rid of its constant importance, I determined to give a page to it. The evening wolf, infiltrated by the day of hunger, was furiouser and more ravenous than he would have been in the morning. May not the furious creature represent our doubts and fears after a day of distraction of mind, losses in business, and perhaps ungenerous taunting from our fellow men? How our thoughts howl in our ears, "Where is now your God?" How vacacious, I'm not real sure how to say that word, and greedy they are, swallowing up all suggestions of comfort and remaining as hungry as before. Great Shepherd, slay these evening wolves, and bid your sheep to lie down in green pastures, undisturbed by insatiable unbelief. How excuse me, how like evening wolves are the fiends of hell. For when the flock of Christ are in a cloudy and dark day, and their sun seems going down, they hasten to tear and to devour, or tear and to devour. They will scarcely attack the Christian in the daylight of faith. Excuse me. They will scarcely attack the Christian in the daylight of faith, but in the gloom of soul conflict they fall upon him. Oh, you who have laid down your life for the sheep, preserve them for the fangs of the wolf. False teachers who craftily and industrially hunt for the precious life, devouring men by their falsehoods, are as dangerous and detestable as evening wolves. Darkness in their element, deceit in their character, destruction is their end. We are more in danger from them when they wear the sheep's skin. Blessed is he who is kept from them, for thousands are made the prey of grievous wolves that enter within the fold of the church. What a wonder of grace it is when fierce persecutors are converted, for then the wolf dwells with the lamb, and men of cruel, ungovernable dispositions become gentle and teachable. O Lord, convert many such, for such we will pray tonight. Guys, I read this devotional to you because Charles Spurgeon wrote this. I saw the same thing, and I talked to Michelle about it right after it happened. These false teachers. I met two of them tonight. I shared the 108 story 3 times tonight. 2 of them were pastors. Neither one of them could tell me a specific time or an event that God has spoken to them directly about something going on in their life. The one that wasn't a pastor did it like that immediately. Friends, out of those 3, who has the real relationship with God in this example? It wasn't the pastors. It wasn't either one of them. But one of them persecuted me because I didn't go and step foot inside of a door of a church since October 2019. And I have this 108 story, and I have many others as well, that I can show specific things that God has done in my life and Michelle's life and our lives, of how God works and how we listen to God, and when He tells us to do something and when He tells us not to do something. This is every single day of my life and her life. I mean, we won't even go eat at a restaurant if God says don't go there. And it happened Wednesday night 2 times before we got to go to a restaurant that we wanted to go. Or we went to go eat at. We tried 2 other places and God said don't go there. And I just sat here just absolutely baffled that these false teachers believe that I'm the one and Michelle is the one that doesn't have God. How sad is it going to be for those 2 men if they get to Judgment Day and Jesus says, I don't know who you are. Then what? Guys, it'd be too late. Be too late for them. I know this is an extremely hard subject for a lot of people to understand, but I had church tonight on a Friday night at a football game with 3 different people. And I got persecuted because I haven't stepped foot in a church since October 2019. When God showed me John 6:45, you're going to learn from me and not others. And you're going to come to Jesus that way. Of course, I'm paraphrasing that verse. But it doesn't say that you're supposed to learn from men. It says you learn from God. It has saddened me so much. And God has told me over and over and over on the way home from this ball game, make a video about this. Let people know that it's not about a church building. It's about wherever I tell you to have church, that's where you have church. Guys, get this. It's about a relationship with God. Don't miss this point. 3 people I shared the 108 story with tonight, the exact same way with each of the 3. 1 person got it, 2 didn't. And the 2 that God put me in front of tonight that didn't get it, they're pastors or in the ministry of some sort. Those are the ones that are not going to be in heaven if they don't get how to listen to God. Gosh, it frustrates me so much when somebody tells me, well, you don't go to church. You don't know what you're doing. I've heard that so much. But at the same time, God gave me peace all the way home in this hour-long drive that you are mine. You are doing exactly what I want you to do. Now go tell everybody what you just experienced tonight, and tell people it ain't about going to church. It's about having a relationship with me and experiencing me, not stepping foot inside of a door of a church and being accountable to a man. It's about being accountable to me, that which is God, not accountable to a man. If you're accountable to a man and not to God, guys, y'all are going to be on Judgment Day. You're going to be there in front of Jesus on Judgment Day, and he's going to say, sorry, I don't know who you are. Get away from me. Guys, I could go on and on and on about this, but I'm going to end it right here. So, just have a good rest of the evening, and hope this is for someone out there tonight. Good night.